tossers have thrown it out the door with their behaviour this week. They should be ashamed of themselves. They should absolutely look at themselves in the mirror and wonder what the have they been doing. They're hissing at us and calling us cheats in the Lord's long room, and they have the gall to say, talk to us about the spirit of cricket. Absolute bullshit.
There's a big appeal that's hit him on the pad. He's out. Lions gone. New South Wales are 9 down. Onto Sydney Road, and it's hit a car. Oh, I think it's hit a car. What a way to bring up your 50.
All you want is to leave it all behind. Now there is a simple remedy to stay fit for all eternity.
Oh, that opening music always gets me going. Welcome back to the Cricket Unfiltered podcast, the longest running cricket podcast in Australia. I'm Menners and I'm all on my own today. And we've got a fabulous episode coming up. Lots to react to. I've got a few clips of Brendon McCullum to play. I've got some news around the Women's World Cup squad, some great news around the Women's World Cup. And we'll be starting it off with some Ashes news. Before we get into that, what a great episode this week with Lauren Cheadle. If you haven't heard that interview with the Australian left arm, quick, go back and listen to it from Monday. She was very, very giving with her time and also really opened up about some challenging times in her career. And I really appreciate that. It's, a real great joy is when I can interview cricketers that have been through a few ups and downs and hear those stories and get the message out about what some of these young athletes in front of us go through. All right, so go and check out Lauren Cheadle, also Jack Edwards a couple of weeks ago, the New South Wales captain. Check that one out. But let's get into the cricket news. And since the last Cricket Unfiltered podcast, the discussions around Pat Cummins' injury have got a little bit hotter, I would say, in temperature than they were when we recorded. It would seem the injury is more serious than he's letting on. But, of course, they're going to play it cool. So no problem with that. And we don't actually know yet. So if you remember, he's had a scan and is due for another scan in about 5 weeks now. And that'll really give us some indication of how his back is going and what sort of participation in the Ashes we'll be expecting from him. But there's all sorts of rumours floating around Australian cricket at the moment. Some of those rumours are saying it's a lot worse than we know, and he could miss the whole summer. And that is just a crazy, crazy rumor. And if true, could make a huge difference to the way the Ashes series goes. All I know is from what I've seen with other players is back injuries more likely go the way of being worse than you thought than better than you thought. Most of the time, you need more time to get better than less time. If you remember a couple of years ago, Josh Hazlewood had a back injury and they said he'd be out for a couple of weeks. And then he ended up missing the whole summer. Or almost the whole summer. So I would say I wouldn't say I'm that optimistic about Cummins' future this summer in the Ashes. If he's got this lingering now, hopefully he can be managed through it and play some of the test matches. It would seem unlikely he'll be able to play all 5. And it's just whether he can get fit in time for the beginning or he gets fit towards the end, or it's the worst case scenario and he's out for 6 months to 12 months to get back treatment. So, it is a very, very serious situation, but we will really know in October the status of his back. Now, this brings me to my next point. In October, when we find out about Cummins' back, it is time to hit the panic button if it is worse than thought. If Cummins' back is not getting better as expected, we need to bring Steve Smith in as skipper straight away. And people say, oh, man, you've always hated Pat Cummins. Oh, you love Steve Smith. That's not it. I'm just worried that if Australia just drifts into that first Ashes test match and we haven't really got a skipper in place, we're not sure if Cummins is going to play, will Smith be skipper, will Head be skipper, yada, yada, yada. We cannot allow that to happen. We need to have a clear, decisive plan. And I think a clear, decisive plan is saying, okay, Pat, you're our best bowler. Go and manage your back. We're going to install Steve Smith as test captain for this summer. He can take control of the ship. You just worry about rehab, bowling when you can, and Smith can plan for the Ashes. He can get in cahoots with McDonald and work out a strategy for the whole summer rather than just drifting in like we did against India last summer. And England maybe surprises us. They get a lead in the Ashes, and all of a sudden we've got Cummins injured, not playing. Smith, who's just taken over the team again, having to try and rescue them from losing the Ashes. So I just want a clear, decisive plan, and I think the best way of doing that is if the results in October don't look good for Pat Cummins, bring in Smudge straight away. Right there and then. That gives you a month lead into the first test. I think that's very appropriate. Just on injuries, Callum Vidler, the Queensland quick bowler, has I think a partial stress fracture in his back and will be out for a few months now. And that is another blow. I mean, when you look at the other injuries, he's one of Australia's up-and-coming fast bowlers, performed very well in the Sheffield Shield final. There was even talk he could be in and around that test squad this summer if the injury crisis were to deepen. But now he'll be unavailable, and he joins a few others on the injury list as well as Pat Cummins, but Lance Morris and Spencer Johnson. So look, let's just see. I'm not too worried yet about the depth of fast bowling because we've got Scott Boland. I think Michael Nisa is a very good bowler. Bharat Sundaresan, our good friend, has been desperate for Nisa to play for years. This could be his opportunity if we get another injury. So yeah, I'm not too worried about the depth of Australian fast bowling yet. There's some very good bowlers at the level below, but it's certainly concerning. And, as I said, if Pat Cummins' injury means he will need to be managed sort of day-to-day, test-to-test, just make Smith captain. I mean, this is why you don't have fast bowlers as captains long-term. And if we lose the Ashes because we've messed around, not really sure who's going to be captain for which match, then I'll be very upset. I know they say this team can sort of function with Smith taking over as captain when Cummins is unavailable because Smith does a lot of the on-field tactics and stuff. But I just think if this is going to be a close Ashes series, those 1%ers can make a real difference. And, those real 1%ers can be around, having Smith as captain, allowing him to just think deeply about his tactics on the field against England. All right, the other news, the top order, the battle for the top order is about to really get going with domestic cricket starting next week, the One-Day Cup beginning in Sydney. Cannot wait for that one. Sam Constas has been on cricket.com.au and said he's put social media away. He's just going to focus on the cricket, no Instagram, TikTok, none of that stuff. It's all business for Sam Constas, so that's great to see. So, yeah, I'm really excited about this domestic summer kicking off and then leading into the Ashes and so much great cricket. Now, let's turn our attention to the enemy. Brendon McCullum, who, I've been upset with since the 2023 Ashes, was on Stuart Broad and Joss Butler's podcast, and that is called For the Love of Cricket. And I've got a few clips to play of him, but the first thing is he said his early memories of being in the dressing rooms because Brendon's dad played first-class cricket, and he said his early memories were enjoying the camaraderie and relationships as much as the games itself. So Brendon, even before his playing days, and it's clear now the way he coaches this English side that, he's as much about the off-field stuff as he is the on-field stuff, which is fine. Like, if you ask cricketers, they always say, when it's all said and done, the thing they cherish most are the mates. Most cricketers. I mean, Jeff Boycott would say the runs. Kevin Peterson would say the runs because I don't think he made many friends while he was playing. So, of course, that's a joke. I'm sure he did. But yeah, so he always has been into the fun side of cricket, and I think you can see the way he coaches England and the way he played as a cricketer. Now, here's him talking about Bazball.
I think there's a misconception that how we play is we swing the bat as hard as we can. We try and take wickets and we go and play golf and have a few beers. It's like I find it slightly disrespectful to all of you guys and to all of the people that are involved in this setup who work so hard and have such clear determination of wanting to succeed.
Oh, well, that is him talking about feeling bad and disrespected a little bit. Well, look, I just think they've done a terrible PR job then. I mean, you come across this way all the time, that you just want to be on the golf course and you're just out for a good time. You arrogant, all those things, and then have a listen to Brendon on this podcast. This is what he's talked about. A lot of golf mentions.
Should have played a lot more golf when I was younger. Everyone knows we love playing golf and getting out and doing things, but that's also a great opportunity, like whether it's playing golf, having a beer in the bar, going for dinner. I want to shoot 64 on the golf course.
Well, I would suggest, Baz, if you want to try and change the impression of the team and you, maybe when you're on a podcast with Broad and Butler, don't spend the whole time talking about how much you love golf. I mean, you are a cricket coach still, and you say, "Oh, why are you disrespecting?"
I should have played a lot more golf when I was younger.
So stop saying that stuff, and maybe we will respect you more. And you know, like you talk about respect. What about respecting the opposition? After the 2023 Lord's Test, you were like, "Oh, I'm not going to have a beer with the Aussies because they don't play the way I want to play." Well, yeah, it's a two-way street, buddy. If you want respect, you've got to give respect first. Now, here's Stuart Broad on Bazball.
I think people, particularly Australians, get the b-ball thing wrong because they think it's like this mysterious sort of coaching style where we try and slog sixes. Well, it's just a mindset of playing positively in your style, trying to get rid of the fear of failure because that hampers you in international cricket.
Well, there you go. That was Stuart Broad explaining Bazball. I do get it. Like I get the fear, you know, trying to remove the fear of failure and being positive, etc., etc., etc. But you know, they have just done a terrible job. You know, they've said things about how they're changing Test cricket. They've said things about how they, you know, they've disrespected the laws of the game, the over rates, the World Test Championship. Stokes saying, "Oh, you're not entertained." You know, in the Lords in the series against India recently, when India wanted to bat on to get their hundreds, they were spat the dummy. So you know, if you want to be liked, if you want to be respected, you've got to give respect. And they've just done a terrible PR job. And you know, I actually. Brendon McCullum's probably a good dude. I mean, everybody that's commentated with him and stuff, he's a well-liked guy, but he's got to do better than this stuff. All right, so that was Brendon McCullum. They actually had a world record win over South Africa in the final ODI. So I don't know what it is about South Africa and dead rubbers, but they won in Australia in the one-day series, then in the third game got absolutely hammered. And the same thing happened here. They beat England in the first two ODIs, but then lost by 342 runs in the final one. And look, I do think losses in those dead rubbers don't mean as much. If you're a tourist and you've won the series 2-0 away, you do put the feet up a little bit. So, you know, it was good for Australia, it was good for England, but it doesn't mean much after you've been thumped in the games that matter. And Jacob Bethel scored his first professional 100 in the third ODI. So he's a bit of a wunderkind for England at the moment. And I've said this on the podcast before, but he was out here a few years ago playing grade cricket, and I commentated on a few games. And he did look like a very good player then. He was quite a small, slight young man, but he's grown up a bit now. And yeah, expect great things from him. I do think it was ridiculous making him T20 captain of England. I just think it's disrespects the whole game, disrespects the whole cap. If you're giving someone a captaincy, the captaincy has never made a professional 100. I just think that's a step too far. You can give people leadership experience without giving them the England captaincy. But yeah, anyway, world record win for England in the dead rubber. All right, now turning our attention to the Women's World Cup. Since the last episode, Australia have announced their squad for the 2025 50-over World Cup. Australia will be looking for their 8th World Cup. Look, a couple of notable things. I guess, firstly, some inclusions. Sophie Molyneux returns to the side after a knee injury that she's had since last December. I think this is a very strange decision, and I've got to say I'm not a real fan of it. She's likely to miss the warm-up games against it. Well, they're not warm-up games. They're one-day games against India before the World Cup. So basically what the selectors are saying, and she's going to come into the World Cup with no cricket. And I just think this is a big risk, and I'm surprised guys are doing it. There's so many good players around. Why wouldn't we be picking someone who's fully fit and you can get some cricket into them before the tournament? Charlie Knott, Sophie Molyneux's backup, so they do have a backup who'll be over there in India. But as I said, just a very strange decision. They must really value her. A bit like when Travis Head was injured in the 2023 World Cup and Andrew McDonald was like, no, we need Head. We're going to get by in those early rounds without him. It almost backfired, but they got the chocolates in the end. Grace Harris has been included in the 50 over side. She hasn't played a lot of 50 over cricket for Australia, and she herself was quoted as saying, I must admit the World Cup's a cheeky surprise selection. The head of selector, Sean Flegler, said she just brings something different. Grace Harris, one of the most powerful cricketers in the Australian team. So she does offer something different. She could be a real finisher for Australia in this 50 over World Cup. And she's so exciting to watch. So I'm glad to see her selected. I guess some exclusions, Heather Graham and Tess Flintoff both missed selection. They're both contracted players, but missed selection. Tess Flintoff is coming off an injury, so I'm not surprised about that. But good news, and here's some really good news. And we've talked about this. Amazon Prime will be giving the Women's World Cup. You'll be able to watch it for free. So you will not have to sign up to Amazon for a paid subscription. For the first time, they're giving the ICC event away in front of the paywall. I think you just have to sign up for a free account with Amazon and you'll be able to watch it. Cricket Australia, in the article on cricket.com.au, were at pains to point out that they had no say in the ICC events going to Amazon. So, look, I think this is a really good thing, the fact that you'll be able to watch it on Amazon Prime. But I also think it shows maybe Amazon Prime aren't getting the viewers they'd be hoping for with the ICC event so far. And maybe giving this away for free will give more people awareness of where they can watch the ICC events. But, yeah, this is a win for fans. And, some of these games are on at a really good time. They start around dinner time here. So, hoping a lot of Australians do sign up for a free Amazon account and watch it. But, yeah, I don't think this ICC deal with Amazon's been particularly popular. I mean, the fact that ICC events aren't on free-to-air television is disappointing for fans because they just won't go and look for it if they can't find it easily. But the broadcast landscape is changing, and I just don't think we'll ever go back to having sport on free-to-air all the time as much as, I don't think we'll go back to where we just expect sport to be on free-to-air television because I just don't think they'll have the budgets anymore to pay for it. And, it's weird because the sports need the money. So, like, they need the money from the streaming services, but they also need the exposure that free-to-air television still does bring quite a bit of exposure in Australia, but it's changing very fast. So, in a few years, it could be totally different. Staying with the Women's World Cup, the prize money has been increased by almost 300%. So the winner gets $4.5 million if you win the tournament. So that's pretty good money to win the World Cup. If you're a squad of 15, I think they give shares of the prize money to the staff. So just say there's 20 shares of $4.5 million. That's $225,000 if you win per player. Runner up, $2.24 million. So yeah, just great. The total prize money is almost at $14 million, up 300%. All right. So last bit of news before I wrap this solo Cricket Unfiltered up. An interesting report in the Daily Telegraph really underlined why privatisation needs to be looked at in the Big Bash. Devol Brevis, the player we saw score a scintillating 100 against Australia recently in the top end series, he signed on at the SA-T20 competition for a record 1.4 million Aussie dollars with the Pretoria Capitals. That's the highest ever fee paid in the SA-T20. That's nearly half of a 3 million Big Bash team salary cap. And the way the SA-T20 works is they get a $3.5 million salary cap plus one wild wild card outside the cap. Now, I guess the issue here is, Australia wants to make the Big Bash a destination, but we just cannot compete with the SA20 if players are going to be paid 1.4 million Aussie dollars for a season. I mean, even the highest, the platinum players here don't get nearly that in the Big Bash. I think they get around 400,000 Aussie. I mean, it's well below what the SAT20 are offering. So Australia has a long way to go if they're going to compete with these. And this is why privatisation is on the agenda, because how can we compete with that? Well, that's a question we'll need to see how it plays out over this coming summer, where I think Cricket Australia is going to look into privatising. All right, that is it for this edition of Cricket Unfiltered. It's been great to be with you on my own. I'll be back next week. I've got a couple of great episodes planned. Damien Watson will be back. Also, going to catch up with John Norman from Talk Sport, an early Ashes preview with John. So we'll be chatting next week. So thanks everybody for tuning in to Cricket Unfiltered, and